800-760 KFMB. We welcome now San Diego's own Susan Knowles. She is a former practicing family law attorney, contributor to The Blaze, and an author. Her book is Freedom's Fight, A Call to Remember. That can be found on Amazon. Check her out at susanknowles.com. She's got a lot going on. Also the host of Stand for Truth Radio, Mondays at 6 p.m. Susan Knowles, it takes me a whole hour just to get through your resume.
Well, it's easier to do that, right? Thanks for having me on, Lou.
I know. Hey, thanks for being on here. Like I said, you are San Diego's own, and the KFMB listeners always like to hear someone from their own backyard. You have a lot going on. Like I said, there's the book, there's the Stand for Truth radio show. You're a contributor to The Blaze. Before we get into some of your commentaries there on The Blaze, earlier in the show I talked about media manipulation of the election. Media corruption is what I call it. Have you ever seen anything such as, I don't even know if you agree with me, Susan. What do you think of how the media, here's a better way to say it. What do you think of the way the media is covering Trump versus Clinton?
Well, here's the thing. Hillary has been promised this position for, 8 years or longer now. So the media now is going to help her in any way they can to become the president of the United States. And unfortunately, I think early on, Donald Trump kind of fell into that trap where he thought the media really loved him. And they did for a while, but I think they followed him and they listened to his every word because they were potentially setting him up for a time such as this right now with Hillary Clinton.
Well, it's that's an excellent point that you made. They did love him, but he did fall into the trap. You are 100% right. But they only loved him because he was running against Republicans that they loathe more. They hate Rubio and Cruz. Well, everybody hates Ted Cruz, but they hate Jeb Bush. They hate them not based on anything, just the fact that they're not Democrats. That's the intolerance of the liberal media, the intolerance of liberals in general. That's the only reason they liked him is because he was sticking it to the Republican Party.
Well, I kind of see it a little bit different. I think they really wanted Donald Trump, and I think we all have to agree, and maybe we won't agree on this, but Donald is not polished. He's not somebody who's been in politics. He doesn't sound polished. A lot of the times he doesn't sound presidential. And I think in a lot of respects, the media knew that when he got up against somebody like Hillary Clinton, he's going to sound even less polished than he already does. And he keeps really stepping in it every now and then.
Well,
and I wish that he wouldn't do that. Yeah,
but I agree with you and I disagree with you. He's definitely not polished, and he's impatient, which then, I understand Donald Trump because he's from Queens, New York,
right?
And I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. And the temperament, the interrupting, we speak New York. He speaks New York. Right. They're trying to make it into a thing that, he's not qualified. The key word, as I said before, is dangerous. Now, Robbie Mook from the Clinton campaign was just, he issued a statement saying what Trump is saying is dangerous. That's the fourth person today using the term dangerous. So obviously they all got together, and this is going to be the key word of the day, Susan Knowles. Dangerous. That's going to be, they're trying to paint him as dangerous now. But I understand the way Trump speaks because I speak New York, okay? Right. When he speaks, I hear my old neighborhood, okay? And that's the way that's the way I speak a lot of times. And there have been some people in talk radio who say I'm too blue, I'm too harsh, I'm too edgy. And that's the same things they say about him. I'm not comparing myself to Trump, but I'm just saying is that if you're from there, it's not a big deal. That's the way everybody talks. A little gruff, a little unpolished. But the part I disagree with you on is that's to assume that Hillary is polished. She's well practiced, don't get me wrong,
right.
But
right.
It is not by accident that Hillary Clinton is keeping her mouth shut. Because every time she opens her mouth at something that's not scripted, she gets in trouble.
And see, the difference is Hillary stays on the script. which is different than Donald Trump. And whenever Donald, now when he's on his teleprompter, when they've kind of scripted him and what he needs to say, he does really, really well, and it resonates well with the public. But when he gets off of it and he starts speaking out or making fun of people or whatever the case may be, and, I'm from the East Coast originally, so I understand the New York attitude and what that's all about. But unfortunately, it doesn't play well with the rest of the public. And I think that in the beginning, there were a lot of people who really were very hopeful that Donald Trump was going to be the answer because he wasn't politically correct. He would speak out. He would speak the truth. But he has gotten away from that, and he really needs to get back to that.
But now we see Hillary Clinton, who I cited Allison Camerata on CNN earlier in the show, seemed really bored interviewing Robbie Mook, her campaign manager, because obviously these are questions and they were ridiculous questions. They weren't even believable questions that were given that she had to recite. I would have refused to do it. I'd rather get fired, to be honest, than I've always told my friends one day my pillow will be the curb because I'm such a contrarian. It's true. But the point is, she asked those questions, and Hillary Clinton has not given a press conference since December 4th of 2015. I said that earlier in the show, and I got some emails. People they didn't realize that until I said it. She just refuses to answer questions that she doesn't know are coming because she can't handle them. She's not polished.
Well, she's polished in that she knows the buzzwords. As a politician, she knows what it is that she needs to say and what resonates with the public. Not polished in the sense of, she's very educated. I mean, she is very educated, but she just knows how to play the game of Washington, D.C., which is what people like about Trump. But again, what he does, he gets sidetracked. And when he does that, he gets pulled off. I mean, with the Khan thing, with the Gold Star parent who he criticized the son.
Yeah, he screwed that up.
Yeah, well, it's been a week on that. That should have been one day, move on, let's go. But he can't do that. He can't let it go, and he dragged it out for a week.
Just so you know, I applied to be a spokesperson for the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
To their detriment, they didn't get back to me. Really, because when that happened, right there, and trust me, Susan Knowles, you do not want to be my girlfriend because she has to sit there on the couch, and she doesn't have to sit there. But if we're home, I'm there on the couch, and I'm commenting to the TV. It's like this guy gets up there, waves the Constitution, Mr. Sharia law himself. He waves the Constitution, and Trump, instead of saying, "I'm sorry for your loss. We'll have to disagree on the Constitution, but I'm very sorry for your loss. No parent should have to live through that," and been done with it. That would have been the end of it. Exactly. No, he says, "I made sacrifices too." And I just remember putting my hand over my eyes going, "Oh no, here it comes."
Yeah. Well, and it's like when he took the Purple Heart from the gentleman that wanted him to have the Purple Heart, there were a lot of veterans who said he should not have taken that because he didn't earn it. And while a veteran gave it to him, other veterans are saying he didn't deserve that. He should have said thank you, no thank you, or whatever he needed to do. But you just don't take a Purple Heart, and you don't say, "I always wished I had a Purple Heart." I mean, that's just ludicrous. So,
but it's also the way the media presents it. Remember when it came out in 2004 that John Kerry allegedly threw, turned out to be copies later, threw his medals over the White House fence as a sign of protest? You didn't hear word about that from the liberal media. I mean, but it's the way things are presented. Every day it's something else. Like now today we have the terrorist father, Matin's father, in the background at the Hillary rally. This is a guy who said, what was it that he said? I want to get the quote right. Hold on, let me bring it up real quick. About gays after his son killed him. He said, "God will punish gays." That's a quote. Yeah. God will punish gays. Now, people don't end up behind the candidate accidentally, Susan Knowles. You know that. This guy, and they knew who he was. I mean, they say they didn't know who he was. Now they're trying to distance themselves. They're in damage control mode. But what we have here is the Democratic Party that I said Obama, and I don't care. They could kick me out of broadcasting. I'll say it. Obama is the cop killer president, okay? All of his history and all of his rhetoric has led to cops being killed. He has blood on his hands. And he invites the Black Lives Matter people to the White House. Hillary invites them to the convention. They show more sympathy for terrorists and cop killers than they do police officers who have died in the line of duty and those who are alive and risk their lives every day. But the media keeps shielding them from this. They keep dressing it up, and it's like, oh my God, like this is happening now with Hillary with this terrorist dad, Susan, and tomorrow it'll be like, oh my God, Donald Trump didn't shine his shoes. That's for you, Eric, by the way. Donald Trump didn't shine his shoes. I mean, what are we going to do? We can't have a president who doesn't shine his shoes. They're going to do something to make it go away.
Well, I'm not so sure they knew who he was, because I think all they cared about, let's just grab this guy over here. He looks like he might be Muslim. Let's put him behind me. And then
I'll bet you they thought he was Hispanic.
It didn't matter to them. As long as he didn't look totally white,
exactly.
Let's get him behind Hillary because we want the cameras right on him. And they don't really care who he is. I mean, they want to be tolerant. It's the thing that the progressive left does. They have the way that they talk about things, what they want you to do, and they want everybody to just fall in line with it. And it's the same thing they do over and over. And the one thing you have to know about progressive, they're very good with emotion. They like to bring and suck you in and just make you go, oh my gosh, these poor people. I heard you talking about, giving free education to illegal immigrants. They change the words. You change the words. They're no longer illegal immigrants. It's another word. They're undocumented workers.
Right.
So it will make you forget that they're illegally here in the United States. And it's the same thing with this man sitting behind her. All they wanted to do probably was say, oh, he's a Muslim. And they want you to love all Muslims, even the ones from Syria that we haven't vetted properly that might be coming here to hurt us. We don't even want to talk about that. We have to love everyone, whether they're trying to kill us or not.
Well, we have probably the one that's getting some media attention, but only from right-wing media, is the rape of the little girl by the refugees in Idaho. A horrible story. I don't even want to get into the details. Rape is enough. 3 young boys, and what was she, 7 or 9 years old, Susan?
She was, I think, 5.
5,
like that.
okay.
Yeah, she's very young.
And the media just will not cover it. Now, when David Duke said something positive many months ago, the old KKK guy, for those who don't remember, when he said something positive many months ago, the media jumped on it like he's playing golf with Donald Trump. You would have thought that he was going to be at Mar-a-Lago, about 10 miles from where I'm sitting right now, playing golf with him. And all the guy did was say something positive about. He wasn't even an endorsement. Actually, Duke even came out and later said, I didn't endorse him. I just said this. Now, but they want, it's a chance to link Donald Trump to the KKK. Now,
yes.
Are they going to do the same thing now with Hillary and this guy? No, they're going to do the complete opposite.
Yeah, this will just be, gosh, we didn't know who he was, and he was there. We had no idea, but we're glad he came, and I'm sure he got something out of it. It'll be that. It'll be, nobody will talk about it, and tomorrow we won't even be thinking about it. They're not going to attack Hillary no matter what she does. I mean, look at everything that she has done.
Listen, Susan, they don't have to attack her. How's about just call her on the facts? Forget, like with Trump, they make stuff up and then he shoots himself in the foot.
Right.
If they hired me, this would not be happening, by the way. You know that old cartoon with Woody Woodpecker? If Woody had gone straight to the police, this would have totally been avoided. The detective used to stick his head in. If the Donald Trump campaign had hired Lou Pate, none of this would be happening. Trust me, because I speak the coded language of the media. They don't have to attack her, Susan. Let's just call. How's about she answers questions? Why does the media put up with her refusing to refusing to answer any questions?
Well, that's because everybody's in on the game, I mean, look at this with Benghazi, and there's been a lawsuit filed by the 2 family members. We really are not talking about that. That should be all over the news. And
okay. Well, hold that thought. I want to pick up on that when we come back. Our special guest, Susan Knowles, San Diego's own. We won't give you her address, but trust me, she lives in San Diego. Check her out at SusanKnowles.com. She's the host of Stand for Truth Radio, Mondays at 6 p.m. And we'll talk with Susan more. You can talk with Susan at 800-760 KFMB when we return here to the Mike Slater Show on the AM 760 KFMB. Welcome back to the Mike Slater Show, the AM 760 KFMB. Lou Pate in for Mike. And just make a note, we here at KFMB are working on the latest news in the water slide tragedy of a 10-year-old Caleb Schwab, who it has come to light now, decapitated while coming down the world's largest water slide at a water park in Kansas City. The KFMB team is working on the latest on this, and I'll be bringing you it in the news at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock as we head into the Brett Winterble show. So we'll bring you the latest on that tragedy. Truly sad and getting more horrifying as the facts come in. But we'll bring it all to you here at 760 KFMB. In the meantime, my name is Lou Pate. Susan Knowles from SusanKnowles.com is here, San Diego's own. Susan, you got time for a call?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Rick, welcome to the Mike Slater Show with Lou Pate and Susan Knowles. How are you?
I'm great, Lou and Susan. Let me just say this. First of all, I really want to tell you how much I appreciate your talking about this subject, and I know how hard it is to get a book published, so Susan, congratulations.
Thank you.
But I wanted to tell you that I'm a student of the media, and I've been watching the media change over the last 4 or 5 decades, and I don't think we have journalists anymore. What we have now are proponents, and unfortunately it started because the educational academia has taught these people that they aren't there to report the news, they're there to shape it. And
well, it's all propaganda now, Rick.
We're all victims of that now.
It's all propaganda. Would you agree, Susan?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, they're taking direction from their bosses who are all in for the Democrat Party, and they're just doing what they're told, and they're not thinking independently. We used to have reporters and journalists who would think independently to get the story, and they would even go against their bosses if they wanted to break the truth. And I think people these days in journalists, I'm not sure they know what the truth is anymore, and they may not care as much as they used to.
Now,
I think they've learned how to reinterpret things in a way, and it's partly because they don't know what they don't know. They've been trained this way, and you can see it throughout not only journalism but in politics. Our leaders, they're thinking differently, and I really believe it's a result of the way our school systems, and in particular advanced education, are training these kids and these young adults.
But now, Rick, remember, I caught the very tail end. I was a kid, a very small child, the tail end of Walter Cronkite's career, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't remember it, but I remember him being there. I remember the sign-off kind of. But Cronkite turns out to be a flaming liberal. And although I wasn't a fan of Cronkite, I have to respect the fact in later years that looking back at tapes and whatnot, you did not know his politics. You had no idea where he stood. And even to some extent, Ted Koppel on World News Tonight, which I remember much better, you didn't know where Ted Koppel stood, whether he was Republican or Democrat. You didn't know where Walter Cronkite stood. Now they don't even try to hide it.
No, it's not even that. It's also just, I think, a worldview that they have that they've learned over the years, and they're kind of a group think. How we talk about group think nowadays, and everybody in the industry, and there are exceptions, of course, but I think for the most part, they're all thinking along the same lines, and this is part of the problem, is that the rest of us conservatives are considered weird. And they really look at us as somebody who are uninformed, ill-advised, and dangerous. And this is what's really scary and part of the reason we're seeing our country so divided.
And thanks for your call, Rick. Those are the compliments that they give for conservatives, Susan. Usually it's right out racist, bigots, male chauvinists, that all the misogynist, all that type of stuff. They won't call you a misogynist, Susan Knowles, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. And I think Rick is right in a lot of respects, because we have taught people these days to just, I'm talking about the people who are becoming journalists or reporters, we've taught them just to not really do any thinking, but just go along with whatever is being taught to them. Used to, we would, if somebody told us something in school, we would really think about it and be critical and analytical and critical thinking. We don't have that anymore. And we used to, in the news, we used to just report the facts. And now, as you said, we do the shaping of the story, which is really not what you should be doing. But you should be thinking about, what I'm seeing here, what is the truth and what isn't, and you should be reporting on that, but that's not what people are doing, and that's the same reason they don't like conservatives. Conservatives are still pretty much critical thinkers, And people don't like that. They just want you to go along, get with the program.
Right. Now, before the break and before we took Rick's call, you mentioned that the Patricia Smith and Charles Woods, the parents of the 2 Americans killed in Benghazi, have a lawsuit going against Hillary Clinton, yet the media has vilified these people, Susan Knowles. Well, meanwhile, Khan, his son was a hero and he gave the ultimate sacrifice. His father is not a hero. His father supports Sharia law. They've made him into a hero. Meanwhile, they continue to vilify the parents of Benghazi victims. Why do we as Americans even put up with this?
I don't know why we put up with it. I really don't. But I think these people, they're doing the right thing. They've been defamed by Hillary. And I think what she forgot was, these are not public figures. Their children may have been, their deceased children may have been, but they're not. And you can't go around doing that. And I think, everybody wants to sweep this under the rug on the Hillary Clinton campaign. They don't want this email server to come up. And that she may have had a part in the deaths of these 2 men because of the fact that she discussed things on her email, on private email server, just as what they're trying to say now may be the cause of death of the person in Iran, the scientist who was hanged recently, because he was mentioned in Hillary Clinton's emails on her private server.
Well said. We'll take a quick break. Susan Knowles, check out her website, susanknowles.com. Give support to the San Diego girl. She's a former practicing attorney, the host of Stand for Truth Radio, and author. There's a lot going on there, so check it all out. Susan's going to stay with us, and we'll return here on the AM 760 KFMB. Welcome back to the AM 760 KFMB. This is the Mike Slater Show. Lou Pate sitting in. Another half hour to go. Brett Winterble standing by. Coming up just before the news just before Brett's show at the news at the top, we'll have an update on the Caleb Schwab death on the largest water slide in Kansas City. I said Brett's show was coming up at 5 o'clock. I meant 2 o'clock. Brett Winterble Show, 2 p.m. I accidentally gave East Coast time. My apologies for that. So the water slide story at the top of the hour, Brett Winterble at 2 p.m. In the meantime, San Diego's own, Susan Knowles, your husband's going to start calling you San Diego's own. He's not going to call you Susan anymore. Check her out at susanknowles.com. Now, we were talking about a lot of different things, mostly with the media, and yes, we closed out the hour talking about how the parents who have the lawsuit were vilified. I want to make this point before we move on, Susan Knowles, is Hillary Clinton lied about the Benghazi terrorist attack being about a video while standing in front of their children's caskets. I mean, knowing she was lying, and the emails show this because on the day of the attack, she emailed Chelsea Clinton, her daughter, and said it was terrorism. However, many days later, when the bodies were shipped home, she said it was due to a video. So she stood in front of the caskets of these fallen heroes and lied about their cause of death to the world. I mean, what type of person does that?
Well, it's just deplorable. I mean, it really is. And I think a lot of people, unless you watch the news all the time or listen to it, you're not going to know all of that. You're not going to know what she did in Benghazi because all she talked about in Benghazi was, what difference does it make? It's been a long time. That was yesterday. Why are we still worried about it today and still talking about it? And then we had all of the hearings on Benghazi and nothing came out of it. What we needed to do was work quicker than we did and get this news to the forefront right when it happened. But the Republicans, unfortunately, didn't move quickly enough to get that in front of the news and keep it in front of the news. But you can't let this slide for weeks and months because that's what progressives and, those on the left say is, well, that was a long time ago. Let's move on. And people, they'd move on.
Well, part of it is the media doesn't cover it. The media wants it to go away as much as Hillary Clinton. So when these things come up, they switch it, they sweep it under the rug. But Susan Knowles, you contribute to theblaze.com. And before I get to it, though, I want to let people know, we're going to be talking in a few moments, talk about the media sweeping things under the rug. The title of your contribution there is Obama administration's latest card trick with a $400 million payout. Talk about sweeping it under the rug. That one went away fast, Susan, but I want to take a call first or two before we get there. You can check out her commentaries on theblaze.com, but we'll give you a more precise address later that takes you directly to the page. Richard in Escondido, welcome to the Mike Slater Show with Lou Pate and Susan Knowles.
Yeah, I want to thank our guest for her honesty and giving us a real clear picture of what the lack of truthful news is about. And one of the things I wanted to
Hey, Richard, you're all broken up. Do me a favor, get to a better cell zone, because I think I like what he's saying, Susan. I think he's complimenting us. So we definitely want to hear what you're saying, but you're just in a bad cell zone. So Richard in Escondido, when you get to the next town, give us a shout, and we'll put you right up. In the meantime, let's go to Randy in North County. Randy, thank you for holding.
Hey, yeah, thanks for taking my call. I kind of want to piggyback on what the last caller was saying. Agreeing with him, I think good what you're bringing to the forefront. People are finally starting to wake up and realize how bad media is and how much of a joke it is. I'm a mid-20s male. I grew up, going through the school system, and they really do not teach you to question. If I was a very big history buff during high school, and when you would ask questions about things that were in the textbook or, try to come up with a different theory or ask anything about what happened, it would say, it's in the book, this is what it is, just stay on the book. Don't go and venture and think for yourself or question. And they really keep you in line. And it's just affecting everybody now. And they see what's on TV and take it for truth, and that's it. And it's really, really bad nowadays.
Randy, you're technically a millennial. I am just a notch, not too far ahead, but a notch ahead of you. But do you think people are really, I hope you're right, that people are really figuring it out, but how does that then explain the polls where, Hillary Clinton is really building a sizable lead? What do you think, Susan? Are people really waking up, or are the polls false? I don't believe any poll that comes from, though, NBC News, just so you know.
I don't believe any poll that I'm hearing at all, because one day it's one thing and the next day it's something else. I don't know that people are waking up. I hope Randy's right, because I think, if you go and really look what history is all about, you'll find that so much of history has been removed now from the books that you'll just be astonished when you read it. But I think with Hillary, people are looking, especially in the red states, people want a female president. They don't really care who she is or what she does. All they know is that she's a female, and they want her as president. I really do wish people would wake up, see the facts for what they are, and say, I can't vote for this person. I don't know that we have enough time. Maybe her health will take her down before that happens. I don't know, but I'm not as optimistic as Randy is on this.
All right. Well, Randy, thank you for your call. Do appreciate it. Thank you for listening. We appreciate the kind words. It's not funny, but I said to a friend just the other day who was very concerned about Trump, I said, I would not be surprised if Hillary dropped dead before Election Day and they dropped Biden in there. I said that just on Sunday. Oh. I swear. I had a chainsaw in my hand. I was taking down some trees in the yard, Susan Knowles. Paul Bunyan has nothing to worry about when it comes to me, but I did get the job done. And a neighbor stopped by and likes to talk politics with me. And I wish this neighbor was a program director, because this neighbor thinks I'm a genius. And I said, given, and this was before the stare thing came out,
right.
that I said I wouldn't be surprised if she dropped dead before November and they dropped Biden in there. I just wouldn't be surprised. But listen, we're coming up on the home stretch here. Susan Knowles, your column on theblaze.com, Obama administration's latest card trick with a $400 million payout. What's the exact address where people would take them directly to that page?
You just go to theblaze.com/contributors, and you'll find my article. It's under Susan Calloway Knowles. That's my maiden name. So you'll find me, and you'll find that article.
It's her maiden name, folks, but she's not a hyphenated woman.
That's right.
Now, we talk about the media sweeping things under the rug. All kidding aside, we give $150 billion of money to the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Nice job, Kerry and Obama. And now we have a $400 million payout where even one of the hostages says they were not released. Their plane could not leave until the other plane arrived. Add insult to injury, the Iranians mock Obama by taking a picture of the pallet of cash. There's got to be something illegal about that. And and then it goes away in less than one news cycle. You have a whole column on it on theblaze.com. I mean, this is the president's corrupt, the media's corrupt, and here we are 3-4 days later, no one's talking about it except for you and your column and me here on Mike Slater's show.
Well, that's because Obama is so good at talking to people and convincing them that what he says is the truth. He's been doing that for about 8 years, and there are still people who believe that what Obama says is the truth and that he is so wonderful and cares so much about the United States. So when he says, hey, nothing to see here, move along, everybody's like, okay, I believe you, I'm moving along. You know, you have to look at this. It's a $400 million payout on $1.7 billion total that's going to be given to Iran. And what is this about? Well, you know, he's saying, oh, it's from a 1979 arms deal. You know, we really wanted to get that closed before I'm out of office. What president worried about something that happened in Iran in 1979, since 1979?
They were saying it was the Shah of Iran, money from that deal. And, I mean, you cite in your column John Kirby of the State Department. So the State Department, the president, is it technically, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but is it technically illegal, Susan Knowles, for them to pay that money in cash? If not, it feels illegal.
Well, you can't give American dollars to Iran, and they didn't. They gave euros, they gave Swiss francs, and other currency. So technically, they didn't do anything illegal. But they didn't talk about it beforehand. They didn't tell Congress they were going to do it, as far as I know. They didn't tell anybody that they were going to pay out cash to Iran. So everything about this whole deal has been done secretly. Nobody knew about it, and now it's done. It's over. You know, they've gotten the money.
I thought this was the most transparent administration ever. Isn't that what they would? That's what they were told.
Absolutely, yeah. They tell you everything except about Obamacare and anything else that's important. They don't tell you until after. And
well, here's another something, Susan, that was swept under the rug. Humana is dropping out of. They're not extending, and they're going to eventually drop out. They're losing. Humana Healthcare is losing $300 million a year.
Yeah.
Because of Obamacare, and that's another thing that you won't hear about. Now, lawnews.com is reporting the former CIA agent is saying that Obama displayed, and I quote, high level of deception on the Iran cash deal. That might be the understatement of the week. What do you think?
Well, it has to be. Like I said, the whole thing was done in secret. Even the plane was arranged in secret. The money was, you know, not even American dollars, which they couldn't do anyway, but they had that done. And then they sent it over there, and the hostages weren't allowed to leave until the money got there. Everything about this smells of a card trick or a shell game that we're so used to seeing with this Obama administration.
If Obama had his way, he'd have Joanna Chesmart and Mahmoud Al-Jamal deliver the money if he could, and then let them live a free life. But if anybody wants to check that out, it's lawnewsnewz.com. We'll take a quick break. Lou Pate coming up. Susan Knowles is our guest, San Diego's own. Check her out at susanknowles.com, and also her Stand for Truth radio show, which you can get the information on her website there. This is the Mike Slater Show. My name is Lou Pate on the AM 760 KFMB. Welcome back to the Mike Slater Show. Lou Pate in with you on the AM 760 KFMB. Our special guest, San Diego's own Susan Knowles. Hey, Susan, I think you should join that contest, and you get to host with Brett, who's coming up next at 2 o'clock.
I was thinking about that. I heard that.
And I could use the $760, so if you get it, you got to mail it to me.
All right, we'll do.
Hey, listen, all kidding aside, check her out at susanknowles.com. Susan, we only have a few minutes here, but we're talking about, you know, the $400 million in the Blaze.com contribution that you made that's been swept under the rug, all of the really nefarious, all of the mistakes that Hillary Clinton has made. I'll end the show where I started it. I've never seen somebody more cocooned by the media than her. And if you think Obama was throwing softballs, boy, they won't even give her softballs. But what is the payback? What do they get for it? They're not even giving her access now. They're not even allowed to ask her questions. Everything is so scripted. What do they expect to gain from her?
Well, it depends on who they is that you're talking about, because I think
media,
the person,
the elite media.
Well, the elite media, they're just doing what they're paid to do. And the other they that's involved here are the people that want her in power because they know they can get from her exactly what they need to get. She can be bought. And they know that, and that's why they want her in as president.
She's a political prostitute, Susan Knowles.
Yeah, seems so, and has been most of her life and her career, it seems.
Now,
so,
it's not only that stuff. What about what Donald Trump has said? You know, countries like Russia, like China, we don't know what was in those 33,000 emails that mysteriously disappeared. We don't know what was on the server. We only know about how the Democratic primary was rigged. They could have blackmail files, as Trump calls them, on her. We don't know. That also was swept under the rug.
Yeah, and it's also being swept under the rug how many people so far within the last, I would say, 2 months that have died kind of unexpectedly, people that were connected to the DNC or connected to her in some way of being people that were going to testify. That's been in the news, too. There have been at least 3 or 4 people recently who have died, and overall, for the last 3 decades, anybody that was connected with the Clintons, 46 people in all. Now, that's not to say the Clintons did anything, but, you know.
Just in the last month, I'll give it to you quickly because we got like a minute. The DNC staffer who was found dead in D.C., he wasn't robbed. He still had his cell phone on him, still had money and jewelry on him, watch and whatnot. He is the one that they suspect might have been behind the leaks to WikiLeaks. And the another person who served the subpoena, for the to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, he was found dead in his apartment. That went away too.
Yeah, it all goes away really, really fast.
All right, Susan Knowles, we got to go, but thank you for your time. Check her out, Stand for Truth Radio, Mondays at 6, SusanKnowles.com. There's a lot going on there. Check out her book. Susan, thank you for your time. San Diego's own, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lou.
All right, you all have a good day. Hopefully we'll have you back on here soon. She adds a great bit to the show.